Interested in learning how to apply predictive models to your sports betting? Watch this video and I'll show you how. Welcome to The Advantage. I'm A-Train Bets, and I use my brain to make bets. Now, in this video, I'm going to walk through how to use, in particular, my NHL predictive model that I've built for A-Train Station. But more broadly, I'm going to teach a few things about how to use predictive models in general. And I think it's important to understand what predictive models are and what they're not, and some of the different flavors of models that exist out there. Okay, so the first thing, before we get into the details, I want you to understand when I personally use the term models, what I mean by that is a predictive model that, in my case, does not use any market information whatsoever to come up with its predictions. Okay, it uses player projections, it might use team projections, it's certainly going to use situational factors about the games at hand and what's happening, who's traveling, what the weather is, blah, 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 blah. Not as much weather in hockey because it's all, but you get the idea. The idea, though, is that with the predictions that come from a model like that, you might end up playing anything because the market may be favoring one side or another more than the model does. So you have to, the first thing, when you use a model like this, I'm just going to put this out there now so you can start thinking about it. The first thing to know about this with a predictive model is to not just say, hey, the model predicts this, I'm going to play this. No, it's like saying Townie McToutenstein likes this team. Yeah, you got to have a price. Right? So what you have to say is like the model is going to have some gauge of what's likely to happen, and you should interpret it first and foremost as, is the market overbought or oversold on a particular side of this relative to what the predictive model thinks is going to happen? And if you can start to interpret things that way, then you start to understand that, well, at the right price, just like we do in top-down betting, at the right price, I might play either side of this. I might play both sides of this at the right prices, right? So recognize that predictive models are a tool, but they are not an answer. They are part of coming up with the answer, coming up with the plays, but you don't just take a model as gospel and play it blind, okay? We'll talk about that in depth. This is going to be a fairly long video. I want to get back to what we're talking about, what a model is or what it isn't. So a model is about predicting what's likely to happen. It's about choosing sides. It's not just about looking at numbers and saying, ooh, this price is better based on what the rest of the market is saying. That's what kind of top-down betting is all about, is saying where are there outliers to a market efficiency. And we believe in market efficiency. We understand market efficiency, especially if you've been doing some top-down betting, you're doing some positive EV, even if you've been doing some arbitrage, you're starting to understand what these things are. We have to realize that that's only part of the game. Right? Looking at the market, looking at the numbers is only part of the game. Because at the end of the day, you can get great CLV. If you pick all losers, you still lose, right? So recognize that there can be flaws when you're looking at a one-dimensional strategy like positive EV betting. If you don't realize, hey, FanDuel's good at player props now, and you haven't changed your underlying rankings of sharp books, you're going to be in trouble, right? So what we're doing with the predictive model is providing an entire new perspective and we're casting a new light on what is likely to happen in a sports betting market. And I want to talk specifically about looking at these markets and understanding that it's not simply about price anymore, and recognize the flaw in a totally price-based strategy. Nobody seems to talk about this because we're all about the efficient markets. Well, think about the most efficient market in the world, the US stock market, equities markets, right? So across all the different stock exchanges, whatever, but mostly centered in New York or NASDAQ. And they're the most efficient markets in the world. What happens on a daily basis in the stock market? It goes, whee! Right? That's not efficient. That's the market overreacting to new information until it settles down. So when a market becomes efficient over time, it doesn't become efficient just every moment of every day. Well, therein lies a problem with sports betting, because even though sports betting is approaching efficient markets, we got a problem. In that these entire markets, how long does a company last compared to how long does, Seattle versus Texas last, right? That game's coming up. The line only exists for a day, 2 days, a week, right? Most companies last longer than a week. Seems like some don't, but forget that. But the key is that the markets don't have time to truly be efficient. Yes, the teams exist longer, but the matchup, this game, this moment that we're trying to predict, that goes away as soon as the game starts playing or when it finishes, that doesn't have enough time to become as efficient as the US stock market. So we have to recognize that a market efficiency-based strategy like positive EV betting is going to have flaws, right? It is going to have flaws, especially, oddly enough, as markets become more efficient, as all of the sports books have odds screens. You don't think FanDuel or Bet365 has an odds screen in their trading desk? Come on. So clearly, the books are getting better. They're getting faster. Some of them are still pretty stupid, but that game is getting harder to beat because even the stupid books are learning. They're still getting better. So we have to up our game. And so predictive models are a great way to do that. The other analogy I'll use to the financial markets is what most positive EV and most software out there for sports bettors is oriented to what you would call in the financial industry technical analysis. This is where you're monitoring how a stock's moving or how the market's moving or how industry and information are happening. And it's all you're looking at charts on screens. And you're not necessarily looking at the other side of this, which is fundamental analysis. So like Warren Buffett, he's a fundamental analysis guy. He buys companies that he thinks are going to make money, right? That is what we're doing with predictive models. We are taking a fundamental view of these markets, and then we're saying, where can we get a good price? So we bring them into the top-down analysis. We always want to price shop. We always want to get a good deal. But just getting a good deal isn't enough to win at sports betting, right? We have to find good deals after we have some perspective on what we're interested in buying. That's the whole impetus around models. That is why we're investing in models in A-Train Station. That's why I've been investing a ton of time and energy in building models, because I recognize that these points of view are essential to winning in sports betting in the future. And that's why we're adding more models by our members. Our members can now create models and sell them to other members who aren't going to have time or the skills to build the models themselves, but the people who invest hundreds and hundreds of hours, maybe thousands of hours on some of these models like that, you don't have enough betting in the day available to you to fully pay yourself for the time invested in those models, especially if you're a recreational bettor, which is where all pros start. Right? So if you have ideas on being a pro bettor someday, start by being a great recreational bettor. Buy yourself a few vacations, buy yourself a car, and then buy yourself a career, right? Build towards that. And if you want to build towards that, models are an important aspect of that. So let's get into betting with the model, specifically my NHL model on A-Train Station. So again, even if you're not betting NHL, even if you don't want my model, we have other models. We've just launched an NFL model. There's another NFL model coming. There's a English Premier League model coming, and there's a whole bunch more behind that. So I will focus on building my NHL model and my Major League Baseball model, and that's good for me. That's what I'm going to do personally as A-Train Bets, and you'll see this. And when you go in, you can go to our model marketplace, and you'll see that we have two models currently available. There's more coming, like I said. Obviously, I have access to mine. I do not yet have access to the one we launched yesterday from Rich the Data Guy. He's got an NFL head-to-head model that's looking pretty promising. So again, this is going to be a whole marketplace. There's going to be a bunch of different models available. And this is an opportunity to come in and bring this additional insight that sports bettors need to your betting. Okay, so I have this. Let's go to search with mod. Now this is defaulting me to a waiting set that I was using previously. So let's adjust this. I'm just going to do a very simple advanced search. We're going to go here, and you know what? Let's walk from the way you would do it. Like, let's just start. We'll cut that. We'll fix it in post. I'm not going to fix it in post. All right. So we'll start here in the A-Train Station landing page. Okay. So we're going to go straight to the advanced search because none of the main searches include mod. So we're going to start by just looking, what does the model bring back? So I'm going to kill these odds range, stats range we're not using. We're not doing anything. All I want to do is see in the next day, show me anything. Well, let's up the percentage here a little bit. Let's show me anything with a 5% EV or better. Okay. And we're just going to run this. And I did upload the model a little bit before I started working on this video, but I want to show you just how many plays it found and recognize that on the fringes, what you're typically going to see are situations where sometimes things get inefficient in what the model's running. Sometimes the books offer way better prices because most of the time these things don't happen. So again, you have to recognize, is it under or overpriced? Just because this says, oh, this is an amazing price and we estimated a plus 438, doesn't mean just go play it willy-nilly. Don't invest the college fund on it because it doesn't mean that this is necessarily a good play. Chances are this is probably not totally true. This is probably actually more than it should be for this particular line, but a 2.5 pretty tough because you're talking a 1-0 game or a 2-0 game, right? So under 2.5 may happen. I mean, plus 1850 does feel like it's an awfully good price on a 2-0 game in hot, but regardless, this is where I'm going to be looking towards playing things that are a little bit less underdog. So when I go through here, and again, this is just for a Blackhawks Bruins game. I have a couple plays in there for now. I have the my betting size set to pretty low. I'm just kind of capping it at about $30 on these plays as we're getting into it. Just like I did with the Major League Baseball model. I started with $10 on the Major League Baseball model and had worked up in the course of a month to was betting $150 a thing at 20,000 in play. Like you can get to that level, but right now I'm still in the testing the model, and that's the key thing. As you step into this, bet smaller, much smaller than you're comfortable with. Like step into it, prove out your strategies, and go from there. All right, so what you will do here is we're going to just look at this Blackhawks game. And you see, I mean, we have many days of events, and there's tons and tons of plays you can look at, but you're not going to bet 355 bets here. Nobody's going to take that time. But what we're going to do, and this is just in the next day, so we see a lot of different outliers because my model's creating totals, team totals, spreads, and money. We're going to add in some player props here in a little while and some additional game props. But for now, that's the core. And I like those because that allows me to play at sharper books. That'll take action on more main line. But it gives me an interesting perspective. But what I want to do is rein this in a little bit because even on the Blackhawks game, let's just put the Blackhawks into the search. It's kind of a cool feature here. You can see 32 results in one event. That's still more than I'd like to have. So I'm just working with our search criteria here and trying to dial this in. Well, odds range, the first number is the most I'm willing to pay. I'm going to say I'm not going to take a favorite that's more than minus 150 in what I actually have to pay. There's not too many of them, but there are some in there. So that's the first number. The second number is what is the biggest underdog in terms of real likelihood, in terms of what the model is saying is likely to happen. What is the minimum or the biggest underdog I'm willing to play is a better way to think about it. And let's call that plus 150. Okay, so say I want them to be reasonably likely to happen because I'm looking to build my bankroll. I don't want to play in a bunch of long shots, but this will still be playing things that are in the 35-40% range as opposed to only things that are favorites to win, which you could do. You just do plus 100, say I'm only going to play things that are favorites to win. Some people will do that. Now we can start to see some things that are interesting. Right? So we have a no vig line here of plus 109. That's coming from the model. And we have FanDuel offer under 4.5 at plus 270. So we know we like the unders here. We saw that in just the first look at it. And what we see is a variety of plays on these unders. So what you can do is look at this from this perspective. What you can also do is change this to event time and name. And this is actually going to give us a listing of the plays that we might be interested in making. So you can see I already actually took a play at FanDuel earlier on under 5.5. And that's something too, where I will say it's fine to play days in advance. With the model, the way my model is constructed, it's worth playing days in advance because new information will come in and my model will not bring that new information as efficiently as the market will. So the market goes crazy, but it does get into a zone very quickly. My model's not going to be that sensitive to stuff. My model's actually engineered to not react to things very fast because I want to be the counterbalance to that market overreaction that we see. So if the market goes, wee, I want to be like, hey, you might be down here. You might like over here. If the market goes, woo, we want to be up here, right? And so like the model is designed to just give us a nice baseline of what perhaps would be interesting. So if we look at it here, we can see, okay, we like some unders here. You can play multiple, ladder. You can look and see which books are offering what. And so sometimes when you look at these plays, you might find this is a better way of looking at it because what's the difference between 16% and 22%? It's not that big of a difference. The model is not calibrated so much that precision is meaningful, and that's where like every bet, every decision, you have to factor in a level of confidence, a level of, how much is this likely to be right? As you start to get to the fringes, you want to see like a first period under 1. I love this play. Actually, I love seeing no scoring periods on the list. We can do first period, second period, third period. And you see this and you say, well, under 1 plus 266. I might throw a few bucks on that. These are good plays to say, okay, well, we really like the edge here. I can get something down at Pinnacle or likely at about 105 if you have them. And so that is the kind of thing that may be worth playing, right? And so like these are the ways that you can break this game down. And especially if you're interested in betting certain games, you could do it this way. If you're interested in trying to say, okay, I'm going to attack each game deliberately, that with a model, I think makes a ton of sense. So you start to see, okay, here's what the story of this game is. But we haven't even gotten into the details yet. Like you do so much with A-Train Station before you even dive into the specifics of the bet. What we're looking at here is kind of a macro view of the game, right? So now what we're going to do is let's take a look at this first period total under 1 bet. right? So now we can come in. This is the beauty of a model too. You're used to top-down bet, and you're like, where's all the books, right? Well, this one's the only book that I have offering an under one right now on the list of books that I can play at. And so if I wanted to see more, so there's a way I could do this too. If I wanted to see more, I could actually create, I have a stream one that has a lot of books. This might pull in more lines, but there's actually not much in this market. So the period by period totals in terms of the data that we have currently, we don't see it for any other books. Sometimes that happens. You know, it also could be something that I need to look at from a mapping perspective. Early season, man, they start changing stuff on you. You got to figure it out. So I'm going to take a look at that. But the idea here, though, is that I don't need even the other books. I don't even need to know what anybody else is saying, because the model's telling me here the Pinnacle at plus 266 is very interesting. Now, keep in mind, also, I'm not using any other book sharpness right now, which is the next thing I was going to do. So right now, we're looking at a pure model play. What did I tell you when I first introduced this video? You don't want to play just pure model plays, right? You don't want to just say, well, the model says this, I'm playing this. No, what I like to is this. So I like to use the ADAR hybrid. And you'd be like, Train, what's the ADAR hybrid? I'm glad you asked, Train. I will show you. And so this, when I go to my weighting set, what we see here is I have my model. It's weighted it as a 20. And if you're not familiar with the way we do weighting lines and line weightings at A-Train Station, think of each as a vote. So the model gets 20 votes. And then look at everybody else in the market gets at least one vote. And we give a little bit more to the sharper books. And so we like that. We think that makes a lot of sense. But keep in mind, I'm not really looking to try to get a pure top-down edge here. I am looking to try to get an assessment of where the market as a whole is. So like when I'm doing top-down betting, I'm generally going to be using a sharp book-based strategy. But what I found with the models is that I want as many perspectives as possible. All these books have odd screens. All these books have trading groups. I want to bring those perspectives in so that I can be like, yeah, I like what I'm looking at. So let's do that. So let's go into the search. And instead of doing the pure NHL model, which is what this one was, the ADAR hybrid is bringing in these weightings as this. So you can see the NHL model was just the model. It doesn't really matter what the weightings are there when it's just the model. But when you go to the hybrid, now you have a weighting of 20. But so we're heavily weighting the model, but everybody else gets some say. All right, so we're going to do that. So let's bring in ADAR hybrid. Now I'm going to take this down to like 1% because I think we're going to see many fewer plays. We're still going to keep the event time name so we can see it. All right, now we're talking. What we see is a nice tightening of the plays that are interesting. This is what I like, because when I start to look at this, I can say, okay, well now we've factored in our weighting of 20. We don't have a stats weight. And typically, I would even add a stats weight to this also, which gives me some perspective from previous performance. When I do that, that's a third angle to look at. And then if I can see if it hits on all three, it's kind of a close to a must play. So if it's just right now, it's the beginning of the season, so I don't really want to base anything on stats. But 2 weeks from now, I'll be adding in a stats weighting again, because it will have enough data to go on and start to look at some of the stats. So I'm gonna come back here. So now in this game, I have a bunch of plays that are varying degrees of interesting. Now this under 5.5, I've already played it, so you can tell I like it. Let's go look at this one. So this one we have a ton of data on, right? So the total for the game, everybody's got lines, right? So, and some of them take them off or whatever, but like most of them are available. And so what we see is, all right, well, BetOnline now has the best price at plus 109. I had bet it earlier at plus 107, so not too far off. You can't see that. Plus 107 is what I bet it at earlier. So not great because I can get 2 points better now, but it's still okay, right? Most of the market's not even at that level. So, okay. So a little bit less CLV. Didn't time the market perfectly, but that'll happen. But now I can see it at plus 109. I'm like, okay, well, it's a 5% edge. Clearly the model's saying, we expect it to be kind of over here. And so we think, there's a good chance of this happening. And you can see up here, the model saying it at minus 102 means it's got a little bit better than 50% of chance happening. Well, if I come back here, we need it to happen a little bit better than 48% of the time if we're getting it at plus 109. If we got it at plus 107, it's still going to be, 48.5% or so. So we're still got edge with the model with the bet I'd made a day or two. But we're feeling pretty good about this side on this play. But think about if we didn't have the model right now, you'd have no perspective on side. You'd look at this market and you'd be like, oh, I'm not playing anything. Right here now we can say with the model, we can say, okay, I have a perspective now. And look at these books I can play. I play a BetOnline, I play a Lovig. These are good books. Bookmaker I can get a play at, right? They're still good enough to play at. So all of a sudden, if you found yourself with limited accounts, now you've got a whole bunch of options. And I found like a couple of my best books, are what quote unquote sharp books. I made more at Novig doing this, right? So recognize that this is where you can really open up your potential looking at these. And I mean, like, I've tightened this in pretty substantial, right? And I can look at more. Let's look at under 6, right? We see where it is. Ooh, we like this. If this line's real, bet openly, right? I'm very interested in this at -110 on under 6, right? That's right where the no vig line is. I almost have a top down by itself edge. But now I've got a model telling me I know which side I want to be on here. You know, you've got theoretically a bet openly market with no synthetic hold. You just got to pick the right side. Well, I got perspective on that now. This is exactly why we use this, because now we can start to bet into these markets that if you go pure top down, you never see it. You never will find this play. Let's keep looking. Let's check that under 6.5. I'm just curious where this market is. So here's another good example. This isn't by itself a top-down play that you would want to make. You certainly, would play at Hard Rock if you can get down there. If you're going to take this side, the model gives you this side as the perspective based on where the market is. Keep in mind, if the market shifted crazy, it'd start to like this side at a point. It'd start to like the over, right? You just have to see where does the model bump up against the market. All right, let's look at one of these first period totals. This is one that has more plays in it. So we've seen, for whatever reason, the other one didn't have as many, but that's very possible that they're not offering the even numbers. That's actually a thing that you'll see a lot. So this one, we have more books. You could play this at Pinnacle, but this is one I'd probably stay away from. It doesn't give me close enough to a middle ground edge. I'd be like, I'm interested in it. Gun to my head, I'm taking the under 1.5 on that first period. I like it enough, but I'm not going to run out and play it because I got other plays to look at. This is just one game, right? So now I can go in. What about second period? Is this one any better? Let's see where it lands. So we're loading this one up, and it will say, ooh, if I could play at DraftKings, which I can't, actually, but because I've been limited there too much lately. But if you can play there, this one's pretty good because it's in our DVIG range anyway. So you might actually have a top-down edge by itself. You know, when you don't have a model, yeah, you might look at this and you'd be like, oh, it's a 0.12% edge. I'm not going to play it. Well, instead, you look at it now and you're like, this might be an 11% edge based on the model. If the model's reasonably right. And I mean, anything's going to happen on any given game. The model has some pretty compelling stats on this, especially on my period by period totals. So I share the Briar score and log loss metrics with all of my members every day. These are things that you might want to research. They get pretty hairy. I'm not going to try to cover them in this video, but the core of it is that they are measures of prediction accuracy. And my numbers on period by period totals are incredible with the NHL model. Again, this is one that I would probably, if I can play at DraftKings, I'd bet into without a doubt. And even at Caesars, I'm really looking. That one I might add after this video. We'll see. All right. The team total is another one that does really, really well on our prediction metrics. Again, you don't have a perspective top down is where this range is, right? And so if we wanted a top down only play here at -135, it would actually have to be over on this side of this black bar. So you'd have to be, a better than 124.9, right? So like it would have to be much better, -120, -115. Now you're starting to talk to play it. Here we can say, okay, we can bet into these markets that don't have a top-down edge, but we're still getting good top-down pricing. This is the hybrid model of betting and is really, really powerful. Okay, this video is going long. I told you it would. All right, so these are things, like we've kind of covered the core of this. And what you have to start learning is that there's so much more that you can do to kind of tweak and find different ways. I have multiple baked in searches that I use, which you can see in this list. These are just browser bookmarks right now. We're actually going to build in saved searches so that this becomes a little bit easier to manage. Like this is a little bit cumbersome. So just recognize there's going to be some UI changes here coming up soon. But for now, all the functionality is going to stay the same. We're not taking anything away. We're just going to make it simpler and easier to understand and use. But what you'll see is one of the things that I love to look at is the PMCF. This is the same thing. So if you've been to our main page, right, our main A-Trade Station page, the plus money coin flip, this is when the market, or in this case, the model, is telling me that I have a better than 50% chance of the bet coming home, and I'm getting at least plus 100 on the actual cost. So in this, I'm actually using the hybrid, looking for exactly that. Remember, this is the price I'm willing to pay. This is the likelihood of it occurring. And I'm looking for anything 3% or better. You could go in and play these blind. You could play these blind. I mean, that's seriously, this plus money coin flip with the model in a hybrid mode. I love these. Right? First period New York Islanders money line. How would you ever pull that out of a hat? You would never just say, I love that first period Islanders money line. No, you would never do that. But here, look at this. If BetMGM is actually still offering this line at plus 105, run, don't walk. Take this. Take some money off their hands. They deserve it. That is the kind of thing that you want to see. Boom. We love this side. Look at that price. Now, it's probably not there by the time you see it, but that's the kind of thing that you can go and say, oof, I love it. Look at the next game. All right, let's go. So let's go to this over 6.5. Ooh, so here's another one, right? So at plus 121, you see top down, almost good enough, right? So that's good sign. We like that we think on the model, the composite view, right? We think the side's 53% likely. It only needs to be 45% likely for us to have profit. We love that, right? Profit X. If we can get anything down there, that's cool, but we also got Pinnacle in the backup, so we can still play this at plus 118, no doubt. Over 6.5, love it. You can see, I already made a play on over 6, right? This is the kind of read. Once you start to dial in some of these searches, and you start to surface these plays, you'll look at it and be like, oh yeah, baby, I'm doing that. So that's the kind of reaction you want. If you're like, nah, that's all right. Don't worry about it. You got another one, Here, look at that. Caesars. Nice play here. You got a little bit of a top-down advantage. Others are around, but you weren't going to play it based on just these. But the model disagrees pretty handily here. So now we see this plus 120 at Caesars, which you would never have found top-down because Caesars is definitely the sharpest of this bunch. But you got Flyers plus 120 over Caesars. Love it. Love it. So these are the kinds of things that with a model, you're going to find plays for days. You're going to find so many things. I mean, we're just looking quickly on a random Friday. Early in the season, there's a fair number of games. Don't get me wrong. You got nothing, but so you just look at this, and this is just one model in one league. Get other models, get other leagues, go and build your own model if you want to. Like I enjoy building the models so much more than I enjoy betting. Betting to me is about, I love the analysis of these betting opportunities, but like I don't like sweating the bets. I don't like doing I like the money. Don't get me wrong. I like what I'm winning, and so then like I'll do it. But chasing dollars is hollow to me. I'd much rather teach you how to assess these markets. I'd much rather talk about economic theory. Yes, I'm a dork. I get it. So just recognize there is a lot to this. I'm going to cut it here because I could just keep going on for days, and the people on the Discord certainly know I will. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of a depth and understanding of where you can take these models. You are not going to subscribe to A-Train Station first day and then subscribe to the model first day and have all of this figured out. It is going to take time. Sports betting is complicated and nearly everyone loses, except the people who are attacking it like this. And that's the kind of thing is that if you start to understand what it takes to be an advantage sports bet and say, I know it can be hard. I know it can be tricky. I know I'll be confused. And I have so much more to learn. And I'm sitting here saying that about myself. But we have the tools and we have an ability to understand how sports betting is evolving and how these markets work and how these models work and how these opportunities can surface. And you will find some plays because you saw the things I was doing in those searches. I could adjust little things that showed me a different list. And that list is going to be pretty unique to me, right? Others might emulate it. Others might do similar things. But they are playing at different books. They're looking at this at different times. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about models. These plays are going to be here all day, right? Many of these the market will not see. And we will have that edge because of all the work that's gone in to surface these plays. And all the top-down lemmings are not going to see that play because it's not a pure top-down edge. But you start to combine multiple points of view and you get exponential advantage because you see things that they don't. When you start working with these models, you start seeing through walls. You start the world becomes clearer and it's a beautiful, beautiful. So with that, I appreciate anybody who stayed this long. I appreciate it. Hopefully you've learned a few things. Hopefully we'll see you over at the station. Happy to share that model with you. Hopefully we'll see you as a subscriber over there on that as well. But definitely, no matter what, just recognize this is a complex game, and if you love it, you'll keep just peeling that layer by layer back in your knowledge, and you'll get sharper and sharper. Many different tools you can use. I'm partial to the one that I created because this is what I do. For 25 years, I've built tools for data scientists. Now I get to build tools for the data scientists of sports betting, which are the sports bettors. And to me, it's a heck of a lot more fun than working in the corporate environment. So I appreciate everyone who has joined us at the station, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue to grow and help many, many more people become advantage bettors and have a better time in this hobby that we all love. So with that, this train is leaving the station. So until next time, keep learning and get your edge with A-Train Station. We'll see you.